Mr. Ratzlaff, were you drafted or did you enlist?
I was drafted.
Um,
That was July 15th, 1941.
Where were you living at the time that you were drafted?
Roxbury, Kansas.
Why did you pick the service or branch you joined?
Well, this was before the war broke out. And at that time, it was, they were drafting people for, I was supposed to go in for 18 months. And so that's why, the compulsory draft at that time. And that's the reason I joined, because I was drafted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you recall your first days in service?
Well, it's been a long time ago. And things are kind of fuzzy, but I can kind of imagine in my mind what it was like. Yes, I was inducted out of Marion County, and I left from Marion, Kansas. Went to Fort Leavenworth. And of course, the trip over there, I don't remember anything about that. I know that I knew one guy out of our outfit that they were picking up people from the west. I know there were boys in there from McPherson that I knew.
Yeah.
And we all went to Leavenworth, and then that first week, I think it's possibly a week, that we had, we got registered and examination, and physicals. And then we had some time off. I remember wandering down by the Missouri River that runs right on the edge of Fort Leavenworth, and, which was all new to me.
Yeah.
And that's about what the first week amounted to. And then, of course, the meals that never had been in any place like that. They had a big mess hall, and I thought the food was pretty good.
Yeah. Could you tell me about your boot camp or your training experiences?
Well, I think so. From Fort Leavenworth, I was sent to Camp Wallace. That is a base they just built for this program for enlistees like us. It is between Galveston and Houston, Texas. And it wasn't too big a place at that time. And I remember the barracks real well. And our training included, of course, the drilling, the marches in the mornings and the afternoon, or how many times they had that, I don't remember. And the different classes we were sent to. And that's about it.
Do you remember any of your instructors at boot camp?
Not really, no. I know, I thought some of them were pretty, you see a lot in movies.
Yeah.
About how, especially the Marines, how rough they are. And I really don't remember any of that they were that way.
Yeah.
I think some of them might have been, but I think most of them were just more pretty good guys.
Yeah.
They were doing their job.
Yeah. What motivated you to get through boot camp?
Well, one reason, I knew I didn't have any choice. I didn't want to avoid the draft, and so I just attitude. I think a person goes into something like that, that makes a lot of difference. And at that time, that was before Pearl Harbor, and we thought we would just be in for 18 months and then be discharged to homes. It didn't work out that way.
Which war did you serve in?
World War II.
And where exactly did you go in World War II?
Well, in 4.5 years, I went to a lot of different places. I started out Camp Wallace. Then we went to Fort Bliss, Texas. That was by El Paso. And from there, we went to Seattle, Washington. We left Fort Bliss on the morning of December the 8th of 41, the night they bombed Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
And I was in an anti-aircraft unit, or an an anti-aircraft. We had, I think our biggest guns at that time were 3-inch. And we had searchlights.
Okay.
And we went to Seattle. I was there for about 3 years, I think. We had searchlights set up around town. And then from Seattle, I went to Camp Housie. They decided they didn't need us anymore there, so they broke up this 63rd anti-aircraft outfit, and I was sent to Camp Housie, Texas. That's over by, right in the northern part of Texas. And from there, I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, then to California, stopped in California for about a month, and then we went overseas to the Pacific area.
Do you remember arriving and what your surroundings were like?
They were all different, really.
Yeah.
Like in Texas, that was a pretty marshy place. They'd built Camp Wallace up out of a marsh. And I know the parade grounds were a lot of ground up seashells, oyster shells, I guess they were, that they dredged out of the Gulf. So that was pretty deserty country there. And of course, Fort Bliss was on the edge of the White Sands Desert. Seattle was a pretty big town for me. And like I say, there were so many different cities, you know, every place was different.
Yeah. What was your duty when you went over in the Pacific?
I was in what they call the reason I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, they formed a new sound locator outfit. And it consisted of a 7-man outfit. And they had recorders and a machine that picked up noise, sounds like, let's say, hidden mortar someplace, an enemy mortar that we couldn't pick up, you know, couldn't see or didn't know where they were coming from. We could pick up that sound whenever they fired that mortar and then zero in on them, see, and send that information back to the gun batteries.
Did you see any combat?
No.
Tell me about a couple of your most memorable experiences.
Well, like I say, I had quite a few of them, being, I was raised on a farm and I'd never been into anything like that. A lot of that was pretty exciting stuff. But one of my most memorable things that I'll always remember, I think, was after towards the end of the war, when they bombed Hiroshima, in Japan. Well, I was in the Philippines at the time. And then we went over to Japan, and I was there about, I don't know for sure just how, maybe 30 days or longer. And they took us on they dropped that atomic bomb on Hiroshima on August the 6th of 45. And then about that following November, we were in Japan, and we took a trip over there. They took a convoy of trucks, and then we took a trip over to that town where they dropped the bomb. And that was something that stuck in my mind. And we were on our way across, we stopped at Pearl Harbor, and I seen that. I mean, we just stayed there about 3 days. So we were never allowed to get off the ship. But we could see parts of Pearl Harbor where the bombing had taken place.
Were there many casualties in your unit?
No.
Were you ever a prisoner of war?
No.
Were you awarded any medals or citations?
Oh yes, quite a few. I have quite a few of them. And I guess they probably gave them, I don't know if I could compare that with your grade averages here in school, like a 4.0 or a 3.6 or 3.9. You get, I don't know if you get awards for that, or grade school, I guess, maybe gives stars, I don't know. But that's what medals were given for, like on, let's say, with the rifle, on the rifle range. If you got a good score, you got a medal for that. A good conduct medal, if you stayed out of trouble, did your job, you got that. And then, of course, the different areas, like when we went to the Pacific, I got that ribbon that showed that I served in the Pacific EADA areas.
Did you stay in touch with your family during the war?
Oh, yes.
How'd you do that?
Well, letters, mostly. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, like when I was in Seattle, well, we made phone calls, too. But I didn't make too many of them, so it is mostly by letters.
What was the food like during the war?
For the most part, it is good. Yeah, we, like I say, I was raised on a farm, and we were never used to any fancy food or anything like that. So I think the food is, especially when you were on a main base, or like at Fort Benning, Georgia. We thought the food there was excellent. But then again, there were times when we'd be out on training or missions like that where we'd be on sea rations, and they were tolerable. So.
Did you have plenty of supplies during the war?
I think so. Yeah, where I was, where we weren't actually in combat. And that was after the war kind of was winding down, or had wound down, see. So I don't think we were ever short of supplies.
Did you feel any pressure or stress?
Not that I know of.
Was there something special you did for good luck?
No. No, I don't think so.
How did people entertain themselves?
Well, I really, on a base, on a main base, why we'd have the entertainment centers, like the day rooms, we had the books, and that base or camp, or we'd play a lot of cards, and we'd have our time off. We'd go off the base and go town or whatever we wanted to do.
Were there entertainers at the bases?
I think so, but I don't remember any one special that I might have seen. Because I wasn't too popular on the date on the state side. It's mostly overseas in there. I don't remember ever seeing any.
Yeah. What did you do when on leave?
Oh, we'd usually go uptown with, when with somebody. We'd hardly ever go by ourselves. I guess we went to, they always had these service clubs in town, and went to movies and bowling alleys. And I know in Seattle we went ice skating quite a bit. And of course there were the taverns that we went to sometimes. That's about all I remember of that.
Where did you travel while in the service?
Where did I travel?
Yeah.
Well, like I said before, that first question, the different bases I went to.
Yeah.
And like in Seattle, I came home twice, so I traveled between Seattle and my parents at that time lived in Newton, Kansas, and I traveled between Seattle and Newton. And of course, all the travel between the different bases, we went on troop trains. They weren't too comfortable.
Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events?
No.
Were there some of the pranks that you or others would pull?
I don't think so, or I don't remember. I'm sure there were. Yeah. Because we were kind of like in Seattle anyway, we had these radar and searchlights set up around the city at certain intervals. And that we were kind of separate groups of about 15 or 20 people in one barracks, and one place by itself. So I really don't remember any of that.
What did you think of officers or fellow soldiers?
As a rule, most of them were not fine. Mm-hmm. They sure were. I remember one officer when I was stationed in Seattle was Lieutenant Martin, and he was from Kansas. So he was kind of my favorite. Of course, actually, we didn't have too much to do with them. They were at headquarters usually or base camp somewhere. We were off away from them.
Did you keep a personal journal?
No.
Do you recall the day your service ended?
Yes. I was discharged from the Army at Fort Logan, Denver, not Logan, gosh, forget the name. In Denver, Colorado. And we got on the train, and my wife was at that time living in eastern Kansas. So I went from Denver to Ottawa, Kansas. And then my wife and her dad picked me up at the station, at the train depot.
What did you do in the days and weeks afterward?
Well, I really wasn't off that long. I hadn't met, we kind of take some time off, and not having much money. Well, we really didn't go anyplace. We just stayed home. I'm looking for a job.
Did you work or did you go back to school?
No, I went to work.
Did you make any close friends while in the service?
Oh, yes.
Um,
I kept in touch with some of them. Not very many. But, like I say, what we did for entertainment, we had a couple that we were very close to. They were from Indiana. And when we were stationed in Seattle, my wife came out, my girlfriend then came out of Seattle, and we were married in Seattle. She was from Roxbury. And this other couple we were close to, or one of them, they were from Indiana. And so they had a little apartment where they stayed there in Seattle, so we visit a lot and rent a car and go out to different places around town, things like that.
Did you join a veterans organization?
Yes. I belong to the American Legion and the VFW.
What did you go on to do as a career after the war?
I went to work in a flour mill and became a flour miller. And so that was my job there. I worked at Newton. I started in Newton, then I went to Ottawa. Came back to Newton and finished my career there. I was flour milling for 34 years.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
Well, I guess to a certain extent, probably. I know when I read that, I just didn't know for sure just how to answer that question. But I think it did. I think it's probably necessary. But of course, rather we'd rather they find a peaceful solution than going to war. But if it's necessary, well, of course I back it up all I can.
What kinds of activities does your post or associations have?
Well, you probably heard about the American Legion, their Boys State. I think they have that here. I'm a member here now in Lindsborg. And that again, I'm not too involved in that. So, but that's one thing that I know they have. And also it's, Newton had a program, I know, well, they had something to do with the high school and honor students or something like that, or the students wrote essays, and those that had the best ones or whatever, they kind of got a medal or an honor certificate from the American Legion.
Have you attended a reunion?
No.
How did your service and experiences affect your life?
Well, I consider myself fortunate by being in service, by getting out, and having, I think maybe, I don't know, had more responsibility, but probably did. And learn how to get on your own, and not in the places I served during the war, I think they were all for the positive.
Is there anything you would like to add that we have not covered in this interview?
I don't think so.
Well, that's it.
Okay.